afternoon, Father's House Church. It is Tuesday afternoon. That means it's time for another episode of Beyond the Message. I'm your host, Gordon, and I'm joined by Pastor Luke, Pastor Josh, and Pastor Carrie.
Hello.
Hello. We are going to be discussing the message from this Sunday, the two messages from this Sunday. What is the church?
Should we say that this is hopefully a consistent time slot?
I would like to.
Tuesdays, 4 o'clock?
I think it works.
Can we put everybody on the spot right now and commit to that?
Tuesdays at 4 seem like a healthy
I can commit.
time.
There is, if you've ever played euchre,
I'd love
and
euchre.
you should, there is
Can we get a
trump cards.
A euchre podcast?
Yeah.
There are a couple of them in this church and organization. So pending a trump card being thrown, 4 p.m.
4 p.m.
Tuesdays.
I was
Great.
a big pitch guy.
Yes.
Pitch?
Much better.
Pitch
Far
was-
superior.
yeah,
What?
much better
Absolutely.
game.
Explain.
Is that with the
much better.
bell?
Euchre is the poor man's pitch.
Yeah,
Shut up.
euchre is
It
like
is.
euchre's like a
It is.
solved game.
Yeah.
You
From
just
Syracuse.
if you
Yeah.
look at a euchre hand, you know exactly how to play it, and it's boring and dumb. But pitch, because you're playing with the whole deck, it's
Yeah.
like I don't know what you got.
I'm
Yeah.
so offended.
You should
be.
be.
Is it played with the same rules? You just have
No.
a lot more cards?
You
it's
play with the whole
different
deck,
rules.
you
Play with
get-
the whole deck. It's
So why would you
similar,
relate
but
it
it's
to
different.
euchre then?
because
It's the same concept. Like it's
yeah.
Yeah.
There
Like
is
the trump suit changes per hand.
yes, but it's like different. You don't say
there's 4 points. You can win 4 points
Yeah.
around, and you bet. So whoever bets the most points, they get to pick the trump,
Yeah.
and that kind of leads it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Ron Porter and I will crush anybody at euchre.
but not pitch.
Right.
Right, because I don't know how to play it.
Just
Although,
like checkers and chess.
I would like to interject here that I did beat you at euchre one year.
Was Ron my partner?
No. I don't remember.
Who was he
who we
playing
We
with
are
his
quite the
daughter? Was he
duo.
playing with his daughter?
No.
Maybe.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't remember who we were playing with.
Was it a Thanksgiving?
Yes, because it was
It may
when
have
I
been
was
my
at the Grease
brother-in-law,
campus, and I was-
Jonathan.
It was.
And he's horrible at euchre.
You don't know that. Wow. Well.
Anyway,
Anyway.
the Bible and church. Hang on, sorry, just typing to the chat. Hello, everyone in the chat. Vet 986 Gaming and Beatrice is in the
Nice.
chat with us
Oh,
so far.
awesome.
Getting a
I'm
break
sure there's
from
others.
Tim the Tap Man and coming over to the Father's house.
There you
Love
go.
it.
That's, and he's gone. Anyway, so Josh and Luke, you guys both spoke this Sunday. I've been told on the same thing because unfortunately I wasn't able to see Luke's message yet. It's not up on the YouTube channel.
That's fine. We know where your loyalties lie.
Hey.
That's fine.
Okay. Very confrontational podcast.
Take him out
so
to breakfast, pay for it,
far. That did.
goes and watches Josh.
Listen,
That's fine.
Not going to get into that right now. But this is the church. This is what's happening right now, and that's what we're talking about. That's what you guys spoke on, which is the church. And what is the church? What does that mean? What does the Bible and Jesus say the church is? And kind of how have we, wonderful humans that we are, sort of destroyed that over the years and changed it to our own benefit, in a sense. And Josh, I really enjoyed, and we were just talking about this, your application of the gym to the church. And I thought that was a really fun metaphor. And something I think we forget, and I know we've kind of talked about that here in the podcast, but I think it might be worth kind of getting into because I think segues great into what church was originally meant to be in the Bible, and that fellowship of people. And just that we so easily forget when we are at the gym. Luke, I'm sure you know this you seem to go to the gym a lot. It's easy to forget, what the first time in the gym was like.
Gordon, you're really ripping on me. That's fine.
But yeah, I mean, it's so easy to forget, the journey that we've been on, and we just kind of, and to just expect people to know what to do and to not need help or not want to help them, and how that's really the exact opposite of what we've been called to. So do you guys have any thoughts there or anywhere else you want to start?
I did not use that illustration. Although last night when I was listening to Josh's message, I found it brilliant. And I would like to add to it.
go ahead.
Because there are two major categories of how to exercise.
Yeah.
There is go at your own pace. And there is I'm going to try to and aspire to work out like the person next to me.
Yeah.
So we got this little small group. It meets in our backyard / garage. It's a workout fitness group kind of thing. And we design the workouts so that you are going at your own pace. So it's, here's the movements. Do them as many times as you can safely. And here's the time limit. And now it's up to you how much fatigue you want to go through. How much stretching, how much strain. But we're not going to make you lift the same thing that somebody else that has been doing this for a long time and they're accustomed to the move and they're safe in doing it. Like, we're not going to compare those two. And it's actually a challenge to create an environment in my garage where someone who just started feels just as affirmed and celebrated and effective as somebody that's been doing it for a long time. Like, that takes a lot of effort, and it's in the design of the workout. So when I was listening to your illustration, that kind of came to mind. Like, how are we designing our churches?
Yeah.
So that somebody that's showing up for the first time could kind of work at their own pace.
Yeah.
And I think it was a really great example because it drew people into remembering what that felt like. And both of you used, you kind of broke down what the word church means, ecclesia. And I think sometimes we associate, there's power in any gathering, which is true. But, when we're talking about the church, what is the purpose? And the purpose is not for us to just sit here and feel good, and that's so ingrained in our Western culture that starting off right at the very beginning by helping people kind of reframe to think about, the church is all of us. I thought was really, really helpful. It shook people up right from the very beginning to open their minds to, I felt like it was an awesome invitation and beautiful rebuke, that we all need, not judgmentally, we all need that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's easy to forget that side of it, that we are all the church, and that no matter where you are in the journey, I know we're talking, Luke, you were just talking a lot about the new people and newcomers, but just as important that the people who have been here for, 5, 10, 20 years still feel like this is the place to go. This is the place to be. And, you are still growing. We're always going. Whereas, I think it was just a great kind of way to start it off.
And I think it helped people. I know you both talked about the history of the church. It helped people see beyond our understanding of now. Like, the questions we are wrestling, the challenges we face, they have been here for decades, centuries, and a lot of the questions we're asking now, the early church asked,
Yeah.
Like, to your point, when all of the Gentiles wanted to start following the way, people freaked out and they didn't know what to do. And I think we still wrestle those challenges.
Yeah, they wanted to give them a list of 600 laws plus commentary, including which be circumcised.
Yeah.
Like,
If you imagine the conversations,
do that?
imagine the conversations at home for some of those guys who had to go home and be
Can you imagine a wife coming to you, your wife coming to you and being like, listen, there's this new incredible thing. It's in Sally's basement.
Yeah.
They read this. It's just amazing.
Small
there's
detail.
just a guy with a knife at the door.
And it's going to be easy. It'll be
It's
quick.
super easy.
They give you some
Hand
pain
sanitizer.
relievers.
It's fine.
And they're just going to do that quick and then you're in. It's how you get in.
Easy.
Yeah. Easy.
And your son too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You can hold him down.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's perfect.
Let's go to church.
Yeah.
Dumb.
It is dumb.
But we still do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Do it. Yep. We sure do.
Church culture is a thing, huh?
And even tying in, Josh made this point about faking it till you make it, which I had to laugh because,
I wanted to jump to that too, and I was like, well, it's at the end. I don't know. But
No,
let's jump to it. No, you go. Keep going.
No, go ahead.
Fine. Okay, fine.
Yeah, do it.
Well, I just thought, again, like Carrie was saying, I thought that was such a good point and such a good place to start, I think, because it, again, sort of ties into what we're talking about here with this church, is that if we don't recognize how important, because, again, it's that dichotomy, and we've talked about that. Like, it doesn't matter how good our relationship is. Like, you could come to church, you could be everybody's best friend, but if you're not being honest with them, you will never grow as a Christian. Like, you'll think you are because, like, look at all these Christian friends I have and look at these groups that I'm in. But at the same time, if you're just faking it and just like, nobody is helping you. You are not letting them actually help you grow. You're not letting God grow you because you are refusing to face the parts that he wants to do away with. And I think that is something and you guys can maybe talk to this as leaders, because you're always helping people in the church. We come to you because you are our church leaders, but it might feel like, oh, I'm doing so good because of how much I'm helping, but it's so easy to neglect yourself in that and make sure you're growing too. So how do you guys kind of deal with that as church leaders? Like, one, not getting drained, because I'm sure it's a lot to do what you guys do, but then also making sure that you're in a good spot and continuing to grow and not losing sight of yourself. You know, you're like the gym workers, right? You're spotting all these people, but when do you get your sets in, so to speak?
Nice. Pulling it back to the
Look at that.
illustration.
Gordon, this is why you make the big bucks.
You guys are getting paid?
Man.
Carrie,
I
you've
think
been
that's
talking
what-
about your routine.
Yeah, so I was telling Luke the other day that since we've gotten back, we've just been in like upheaval. So I love routine, and I finally got back to it this week. And one of the things I've been reading a lot about is I'm in Isaiah, and at the beginning, you know, they talk a lot about humility and pride over and over and over and over again. And I think that it ties in with the fake it till you make it, because part of Josh's example was his own wrestle to not fake his injury to come out and preach, and the humility that brought him, but also thinking about, you know, how many other people are faking it. How do we, to your point, Gordon, do we model that? Mm-hmm. And I think for me personally, it's solitude and stillness, because of the way I'm wired. I just cannot go inward without disconnecting from people. But then also honesty, like being honest. And, you know, that's not like for everyone, but if you don't have a few trusted relationships who are going to hold you accountable, and if you can't be honest with God, like, that's a scary place to be. You know, that's pride. And I think pride is always at the root of sin.
Yeah. I think what's interesting is that even with because I'm injured, it made a very good illustration, but there is an element of, like, it requires a lot of patience on my end for the recovery from this injury, and no one would question it. Like, nobody questions it. Like, of course it's going to take a long time. Like, it's an ACL. It's like the most important part of your knee. Like, if you don't have that, you can't move side to side. Like, you need to take time. It's going to take 4 to 6 months. And, like, when it comes to people's spiritual walk, I didn't talk about this, but one of the things I was thinking about is, like, how patient are we with people's, like, spiritual ailments that they might not even know that they have.
Yep.
And because sometimes people have physical ailments that you don't know you have, but then the moment you hear that you have it, everything about your life changes to focus on that physical ailment.
Yeah.
Like, undetected cancer isn't a problem until you know it's there, and then all of a sudden it's like, it's gonna hit the fan.
Yeah, your world changes.
Your world changes immediately, and we have zero patience when it comes to people's souls and their spiritual, what we would deem as spiritual injuries. We have zero patience with it. It's like, well, of course you should know the right thing to do. Like, this is like, and it's like, well, no, maybe they just need time.
Right. Well, I think that's the hard thing to deal with. I think the root cause of that is, like you just said, because normally the person you're talking to doesn't feel like they deal with that. And so I think that's where that kind of comes from, where it's like, well, I know how to do this. And that gets back to what you were saying about the gym. I feel like almost, too, it's personal for us, too. Like, I know I struggle with that a lot. It's like, God, why am I still dealing with this? I know it's a problem. We've talked about it, you know. Why is it still a problem? And whereas, you know, if a doctor, kind of like you said with an ailment, is like, well, this is going to take 6 months of physical therapy, then you know. And you don't go in 3 months later and be like, why am I still in physical therapy? Like, I told you it'd be 6 months. But God doesn't tell us that,
Right.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it's just such a different And I think too, there's a lot of shame that can come with spiritual stuff. Whereas nobody's going to be like, "Oh, you have cancer, you're a loser," you know. but like you just said, somebody would say like, "Why are you? Why is that? How is that hard for you? Just don't want to drink alcohol, dude. Like it's not hard." It's like, well, it's really hard for me because that's my addiction or whatever. So it's such a struggle.
And I think too, you know, this is where things like, when people talk about generational curses. And I think a lot of times we forget that people ultimately do what they know. So if someone, you know, has an issue with anger, I think a lot of times you can actually track that within their family. And with most people, it's just they don't know the tools to change because that's their normal. So when we talk about discipleship and being formed in the likeness of Christ, if we're not honest about where we're at, and if we as church leaders and leaders, you know, within the church, if we don't know how to not shame people, you know, for the things that they're going through, we're just going to turn people away. And Jesus never did that. You know, we look into the Gospels and he identified what people were struggling through, and then he invited them. And I love, you probably did something similar, Luke, but in Josh's message, he said, you know, it's God's job to help people with transformation, and it's our job to say hello. And to keep welcoming people into the family of God. And I really like that.
Hey, you said that way better than I did. Good job.
How did you say it, Luke? Or do you want to talk about your message?
I yelled at people.
Okay.
I said our job is hello. God's job is transformation.
Yeah, I yelled at people. It was kind of that part, like, why would we make it difficult? Why do you judge the person next to you because they're not raising their hands like you are?
Yeah.
Like, why do you think that because she's wearing that or he's wearing that you've prejudged what sin is in their heart? Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, same point.
You give smart examples. I just get angry. It's a generational curse.
Yeah. Yeah. That was probably my favorite line in the whole thing, though, to be honest with you.
The fake it till you make it?
No. Well, that was great.
I personally loved it because we've gotten in debates about that.
Yeah, I know. It was great. It was very
So I'm still confused only because I haven't listened to that part of the message yet, which I promised to tonight.
Yeah. Sweet.
But are you saying that we shouldn't fake it till you make it?
Yeah, what I'm saying is that I could have just come in and pretended like I was fine with my, like, because I didn't want to use my crutches. I didn't want to have a brace on. Like, I just wanted to come out there and act like everything was fine. I could have fooled everybody, other than the fact that it was in all the weekend updates, but I could have made it look like everything was fine. He's just not moving around a lot today. Yeah. Basically what I did with the Bible sermon, I didn't want to move around because my knee.
Right.
But then I said, like, Eric, let me know there's a lot of liabilities with that. So
he did. I was there for that meeting.
I know. And so I talked about like how like it is what it is. This is how it's going to be. And then I said, how many people do you think showed up today for the first time, but had to wrestle with the fact that they don't want people to know that their marriage is struggling, that they have all the issues that they might be dealing with because they need to fit in a church. And that was never what the church was supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you don't have to fake it till you make it here.
That's good.
Another one I used to give, because I mean, to be fair, I've preached some of this stuff for probably a lot of times, but when you go, like, for me, I never work out as like a part of who I am. Now, I can't work out now because it's kind of my brand, but
I give up. I give up on you.
I mean, I'm just trying to stay true to who I am.
Right, of course. True self.
But it could be a really cool, like, journey thing. But when I go to the beach, it is like a thing because you want to have the beach body. And so sometimes I'll tell the story of, like, you show up to the beach and everybody who doesn't work out sucks in when they get out of their car. Like, don't let them see it. Like, let's just suck in, hold your breath, like, for the next couple hours, short breaths, and you'll never let that gut show. And so it's like, how many people show up to church and, like, when they get out of their car, they're like, just suck in, people. We're going to get through this thing together. Like, hold my hand and act like you like it. And let's just get in there, and we'll be to take a deep breath when we get back in the car and hate each other again.
That's very similar. Great.
Yeah, isn't that a good one too?
Yeah, man, you're good at this.
And I'm forgetting where, but there's scriptures about how we welcome people into relationships. Like, how do we help people through like confession, repentance? Now I'm talking about things, along the line of sin, but I think it's important for us to ask ourselves, like, why don't people want to tell us that? To your point, and in the message, Josh, you said over and over again, we are responsible for stewarding the message of the church, and what people think about the church is because of us, because we are the church and we embody it. And I love that so much, because there was a great invitation for all of us to reflect on, how do people perceive Christ through my life as I worship him and try to be more like him. And not like in a heavy, oh my gosh, you have to be perfect way, but I think it's a really good question to ask ourselves, because a lot of times we want to abdicate responsibility, to like whoever, the church. People say that, and it's like, okay, well, who are you talking about? But we are the church.
Right.
And usually in that context, that person's talking about us three.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pastor Pierre, Marty,
Yes.
Eric.
But, even last week, I think it was last week when Pierre said, I've probably offended some of you, and not intentionally, but we're people too. And I am so appreciating the way he's being vulnerable as of late, because, and before, but so much right now, because I think he's modeling for people humility.
Definitely.
Like, we have to be humble.
Yeah, definitely. I know I've said it on this show before, just how thankful I am for all of you, Pastor Pierre, and you guys all being so willing to be vulnerable and open, because I agree with you, Carrie. I think that's the only way to really convey the message that Josh, you and Luke were preaching this Sunday, is to be, and it has to, unfortunately, we can call church a gathering of people as much as we want. Like, it still has a structure. We still have a head pastor, and so it does have to start there, I think, because why would I, as just a churchgoer, follow any example other than the one set by the leadership, And I think that kind of gets to your point too there, Carrie, of it's easy to say, and I agree with it, that God does the work and we just have to say hello, but we do have to remember that he's working through us. And if we're being jerks to people, like, God's not going to be able to work through us in that person's life. So is our hello really helping if it's negative,
Yeah.
Josh, did you talk about where Jesus is the fullness of grace and truth, and churches that reflect that?
Not so much. I talked about holiness at the end. I talked about the importance of holiness. It was a quick moment, but I felt like I needed to say it so people didn't think I was like, just do whatever you want here. Yeah. We all want holiness, which I think is a good thing to talk about, but you can't have holiness without grace. So we need to be open to grace. So I talked about that a little bit, but I didn't. It should be a whole sermon.
Yeah. And it felt like that when I focused in on it for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like the church that errs on the side of grace, it ends up being like cheap grace, like Pastor Pierre talked about last week, and anything goes.
Yeah.
And there is no holiness and there is no transformation, and it becomes this smorgasbord of hedonism.
Yeah.
But a church that errs on the side of truth becomes exclusive, insider focused. And they self-select which sins are taboo and not okay, and which sins are easily hidden, kind of like the suck it in example, and are permissible. And that's the challenge with a church that errs on the side of truth. And Jesus was the fullness of both.
Which is crazy.
Using the example of the woman caught in adultery. Yeah. Like, neither do I condemn you. Yeah. But go sin no more. Yeah. Like fullness of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the church hasn't been necessarily great at that. What's interesting is
because they're canceled right at the comma.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Sorry, that came out.
Yeah. Just keep going.
No, you have to.
Well, I was just thinking about, like, if you're in Rochester, there's an Instagram page called Explore Rochester. And one of the pastors that used to work here, Mike Thomas, was featured a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned in there his faith and acknowledged, people, broken people making mistakes and how it can turn people off to faith and to God. And people were so upset that he even acknowledged it. And
Really?
oh my, yes.
Like they were mad that he said that?
Yeah,
In the comments?
how this is not a religious platform.
Nice.
And as
I
it
hate the
as
most
it
recent one.
as it
Yeah.
as it delved deeper, there were comments that equated his post. Sorry, we're really going off topic, but equated his post to oh my gosh, basically intolerance. When in reality, his post was so
Tolerant,
inclusive and inviting. So what you just said reminded me of that, because people don't have ears to hear sometimes.
Love Mike Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the tough thing. And, you can, Luke, like you were saying, well, where do we go? Do we go grace or truth? And the problem isn't with either of those messages, assuming you stay to the Bible. The problem is, even when you say it perfectly, somebody's going to be offended by it and upset. And you're going to be intolerant to somebody, even if that's the opposite of what you were preaching.
Yeah, I opened up the whole message by asking the question. The second half of the message. The first half was, what is the church? What do we mean when we say the church? The second is, who is it for? And the opening line of that second section, who is it for? I said, the church is for anyone, but not for everyone.
Right.
It's for anybody,
Yeah.
but not for everybody. And I think that whole grace and truth thing is kind of in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, don't come in here like preying on people,
Right.
Right.
because
Yeah.
we'll kick you out.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and I mean, even like we've been talking about the table again, and this is what you're saying. Everybody can sit at the table. Like Jesus invites anyone, but don't think that once you sit down, he's not going to be like, so you're going to get your manners together, right? Like
Right.
that has to happen. And that's, we're just saying we are not going to sit here and judge you and keep tabs on you. We welcome you to our church because we know that God welcomes all of us in whatever state he finds us in. But God also will then transform us. And I think a lot of people are missing that, like you just said, it's not for everyone, because then they realize like, or maybe Josh, you said this in your message too, of like, I want to keep doing whatever, so I don't like this anymore. And that's where that struggle kind of comes in.
Right. And so, I mean, Jesus always gave people a choice in the Gospels. He was the master of questions. And Josh, when you had started, your message and you were talking about, what is the church, you made a couple points for people to consider maybe what they've made it to be. And you brought in the history of, it was Christianity wasn't a thing. It was called the way because it permeated how people live their lives. And over time, it's become this thing that we check off a box on a Sunday. And that is a huge revelation. Like, I think that we could talk about that forever and, look at scripture, because that's this discipleship crisis, this transformation crisis, that a lot of, Western culture places find themselves in, because we don't actually really understand the message of Jesus, I think.
Yeah.
Or we just don't want to make it our way of life.
Right. Or we don't want to change.
Yeah. I think that's where, especially in today's constantly moving and doing society, church has just become, like you just said, an item on the calendar versus our entire life. And I know this is a long time ago, but going back to Pastor Pierre's Easter message, I thought was so powerful, because that's what he was talking about. Are you really picking up your cross every day and really seeking after me? And that's something we have to be asking ourselves every day. Like, am I really living my life for God, or am I just making God a part of my life?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing with church, and it's way too easy to generalize issues in people's lives if you don't connect it to the human being that's sitting in front of you, because if you think about Jesus, he had his 12 disciples, and it took him 3 years to get 11 of them decently close to where they needed to be, and they still all left him except for John. And he was with them every waking moment, and this is like God with these guys. And one of them was so off that he committed suicide. It's like, and then we want to, like, in our day and age, create like categories of people where we'll take a social issue completely disconnected from humans and just label that thing wrong.
Right.
Or we'll take a political party and label that thing wrong, but we've completely disconnected it from a human being that's been sitting in front of us for a while. And what it does is it causes us to, like, it creates the mentality that Christians are a certain way because we've completely taken the humanity out of these issues. It's no longer about the human, it's about the issue. And I think it slows us down from actually having impact on somebody's soul because we're so concerned with behavior of groups of people and not so much soul transformation. Because it took the disciples a long time.
Absolutely.
And one of them jumped off a cliff. Like, I just don't know how we...
Well, you even talked about it in your message, Josh. You were talking about, that the church wasn't meant to be a social movement.
Yeah.
And I think that using the scripture you used where Jesus says, just give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. And that was the big crux for a lot of people in that time, is they were expecting Jesus to overthrow Rome and reestablish Jerusalem. But his message was always, I don't care at all about like what's going on in the world in that sense. I care about the individual, their heart, and their salvation. And I think we need to, especially in a time such as this where everything is an issue and everything is, like, again, you were saying, Josh, well, are you this or that? We have to categorize you before we can even have a conversation with you. We really got to get over that, at least in the church. I mean, especially in the church, we have to get over that because Jesus is sitting there looking at us like, what are you guys doing? You're not focused on the right things here.
And we've been given, every Christ follower is given the ministry of reconciliation. And, like, do we want that? You know what I mean? Do we actually want people to know Jesus? Like, I know these sound like crazy questions, but, like, do I want the person who I vehemently disagree with to know Jesus? I think it's worth asking because we may be afraid of our own answers.
Yeah.
But if we're not honest, then we can't be transformed ourselves. And a lot of times I think we use our faith to make ourselves feel good. We put in place this like invisible hierarchy, and we want to become people's judge.
Right. Well, I think even deeper, you need to be able to say, do I love that person?
Yeah.
Even though we disagree on this issue. And because of that, I want to probably kill them in today's society. But can I still say I love that person? Because that's what God wants us to do. And that is challenging because they probably, depending on who it is, if it's not a Christian especially, they will not afford you that same response.
Yeah.
They hate you, because that's just what we've made talking about stuff today.
Yeah, the Jewish converts in Acts chapter 15, I mean, they thought that they had arrived. They got the cherry on top, which was Jesus. They were the elect. They were the chosen. And they happened to be the generation that could confess in him as Savior. And then the Gentiles who, they didn't have to do the laws. They didn't come from the right generation or the right heritage. They were kind of grafted in by grace. Like, they didn't earn it at all. They were born actually in the wrong.
Yeah.
And they got the same grace.
Yeah.
It's no wonder why they were like, well,
They got to do
Jesus
something.
and like Jesus and
This,
stuff.
yeah.
Like bacon, not okay.
Yeah.
Not okay. You
Yeah.
need to suffer like
You
we've
can't just
suffered.
walk
and
in
you need-
here.
Yeah, you think you're all.
Yeah. It's it's the most important thing that's ever happened in church history. Is that council, that debate is unbelievable because it didn't have to happen. They easily could have just been like, well, they got to buck up and figure this out.
Right.
We had to too.
Right.
It's crazy.
But we have that attitude too.
100%.
We do. That's why it all is like we do the same thing. That's why everybody thinks we are certain ways.
Yeah.
Right.
Like because we
Evangelicals.
do it. Yeah, the evangelicals are horrible people apparently because we do the same exact thing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, and it gets worse with the amount of information we allow ourselves that we have access to, and the seeming like the pseudo connections we have with people, like like we can say anything we want on the internet, and it feels like we're doing something, but it's like that's why I don't think Paul would ever have been using social media to get his point across. I just don't think he would have.
Yeah.
One time I wrote a blog about that, and then someone else, without saying me, wrote a blog responding to mine.
Really?
Yeah, it was great. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
I didn't even know you were a blogger. This is a whole other side of
this
Josh.
had to be like
I've been here 7 years. I have not touched a blog in that amount of time.
No judgment here,
But it
man.
was
Blog away.
when I was in Syracuse. Yeah,
I want to read it.
Me too.
I should try to find it.
Yeah. So was the blog in response to your blog oppositional?
Oh yeah,
Of course.
Yeah, of course. Paul would have been using social media. He would have used the tools of his day to get the message out.
He remembers quotes.
Of course I do. I carry.
I mean, that
things.
stuff sticks with you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
I carry things. So, yeah, it was a great weekend though.
It was a very good weekend.
It was.
Yeah,
I'm excited. Do you guys know what the topic is this Sunday? I know.
No, it's a surprise.
All right.
It's gonna be
Praise
great
the
though.
Lord.
Buckle up, people. It's about to go down.
Pastor Pierre,
Buckled.
bring it.
Look at Gordon.
I don't know what to do with it. Are we done?
Get ready with your notes.
I don't know if this is okay to say live, but I'm gonna need to be done.
Oh,
But that's cool. You guys can keep talking, but
No, I'm
I'm
here.
gonna
It's
do
almost
it
5 o'clock.
in the fly.
Any comments, questions in the
Yeah,
chat?
anything in the chat?
lots of comments, but mostly just kind of saying good point.
Oh,
and
people really like us. We need some
amens.
oppositional
Yeah,
comments.
lots of. They're very grateful for
I
this, and
disagree
they
with
love their
Josh.
pastors. And
Disagree with everything Josh says. That's what we
Yeah.
need.
well,
Yeah.
that's
Just
why
trigger him.
Yeah, that would be. That would really trigger me.
Thinking about it.
Yeah,
we'll have
Man.
to. That'll be its own podcast. Just
Yeah.
the trigger your pastors.
yeah.
Amazing.
Well, I mean, we've been going a while. So, do you guys have any last thoughts as we kind of wrap up here on the talking about the church? And
I have a closing thought from our other campus.
let's hear it.
Do it.
Yeah, Luke. Anything from your message that you want to talk about?
Thanks, Gordon. You owe me breakfast. No. One of the passages. So lots of great illustrations, Josh. I love your illustrations and analogies. They're perfect. But the one that I added was the passage in Ephesians 5 that you hear about at weddings a lot and in premarital counseling. Not here at Father's house, but it's the wives submit to your husbands, as the church submits, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then later on it says, husbands, give your lives to your wives as Christ loved the church. And I think it's a great illustration because it personifies the church.
Yeah.
Because when you think about a human, Josh, to your point, when you think about a human and the complexities of humans, and we all like to say like, well, the church is full of imperfect people. If you ever find a perfect church, it becomes imperfect as soon as you walk in. Like that's all true and stuff. And it's cute. But when we personify the bride of Christ, like how a husband should guard after, treat well, serve, bring out the fullness of, affirm. And when there are mistakes, missteps, awkward moments, like she's a bride. Like why would you humiliate her on her wedding day? Why would you point out the stain on her dress?
Right.
Why would you point out where her makeup wasn't perfect or that she, you know what I mean? Like, come on, it's just cruel. And I think that that analogy from Paul really helps.
Yeah.
Because
really
it gives permission. Like no one's, I think here, no one's maliciously hurting people.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like it's a bit of a trend the past few weeks on the podcast.
To hurt people?
No, to say that our intent is not to hurt people. I remember Pastor Pierre was here that other Wednesday night. He said it at first. When, like,
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, and it's very sad that needs to be said, but I'm glad that we're saying it because so many other churches have caused, and I know we're wrapping up, but yeah, it is a shame. But Josh, like, I think that just gets back to that point is, and what you were just kind of saying too, is like, we need to remember the responsibility that we have, that God has placed on us. Like, we are responsible for stewarding his church.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's easy to say that, like, oh, well, but are you living that? Are you really walking in that responsibility?
Mm-hmm.
And that is a heavy responsibility. Mm-hmm. And it's one, again, to use the scripture you used, everybody likes to tell wives what to do, but nobody likes when they're like, okay, well, what are you doing as a husband? You have responsibilities too, and you have to choose to walk that way. So I think that's encouraging though. And I think we do a good job of that as a church, just knowing from my personal experience, at least with the men's groups I'm a part of, I see that walked out of love and acceptance and support through difficult times, not shame or guilt through difficult times. Yeah. And I'm sure you guys would all say the same things about the groups that you're a part of. And I really enjoy the church we have here, and in the ecclesia sense of it. I like the church that we have here. So hopefully you all do too. I think we're going to end it there. Thank you guys for joining me and discussing this week's service. We're going to be back next Tuesday at 4 o'clock because we have an official time now to talk about Pastor Pierre's mystery message. Very excited to see what he has in store for us. Well, thank you guys again. Thank you all for watching. Everybody in the chat, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We will see you this Sunday in church and next Tuesday on Behind the Message. We'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.